We want to get to another live shot here.
That's right. We want to monitor the conditions of the storm right now as Irma makes its way, not so much along the west coast, but more skirting east of Tampa now. Our Chris Stewart has made his way. He's been in Tampa for a better part of the last 24 hours, monitoring the conditions there. Chris, we spoke with you not too long ago. How's the situation now? Has it changed much?
Well, things are definitely picking up, Jay and Shannon. About an hour ago, we told you about more than 80,000 people without power. That number's up to 200,000 and climbing. The situation here through the night is going to get worse in the Tampa Bay area. We're right across the street from Raymond James Stadium, home of the Buccaneers, and I want you to take a look over here just to give you an idea of the conditions. You can see one of the scoreboards or one of the stadium lights is on right now, and you can see just the wind and the rain that's coming down. Also appears to be some sort of cable or line that's either come undone. I can't really see it from where I am right now, but that just is an example of the wind that's blowing in this area. Now, if you've ever been to Tampa, flooding is always a huge concern here. There are neighborhoods, there are places that flood for the most basic rainstorm. The storm surge, another big issue that's going to be here as the hours continue on. It hasn't been an issue up to this point. It's been raining for a pretty good amount of the day already, but there's been video circulating online. You may have been able to see it, that the storm's so powerful it actually sucked some of the water out of Tampa Bay. It kind of created a little beach for a while that people were going out on and taking pictures. Now, obviously, that's somewhat of a dangerous thing because that's water has to come back. And the thought process around here has been that water is going to come back overnight as the storm continues to make its way in. So the storm surge situation, we could be talking about that early tomorrow morning. The conditions expected to worsen through the night into tomorrow morning. So as so many people here have watched the damage that this storm has already caused in our area, across South Florida, the Keys, Marco Island, and as it has worked its way north here, the conditions now coming to the Tampa Bay area, Tampa, St. Pete, they all have curfews that are in place today because of the dangers that come with this storm's worst part for this area. It's going to be happening overnight. So big concerns about power outages, trees down, definitely inland. They're starting to see some pretty strong conditions there in this part of West Florida. And it is going to be a big concern as the night continues on.
Chris, we're bringing in Steve Weigel into the conversation because I remember sitting here, I think it was about this time last night, Jay, and Steve, you were saying this was going to happen right here where we're seeing, Chris, you were sharing the night video that you shot, I think it's of Tampa Bay right near Clearwater, and there it was.
I guess the best way to explain that is that it's a reverse storm surge. It's the wind blowing off the land, off the beach, and it's pulling that water out. And as soon as the eye of the hurricane gets to the north, that wind's going to shift back toward the coastline and pile all that water back in along the beaches once again, and that's when you're going to get that big storm surge. We saw the same thing a little farther south down around Naples earlier, and of course around Fort Myers. So Tampa's next for this. It's really bizarre when you think about how far out the water has receded with the massive beaches now, but it'll all flood back in. I actually saw some photos coming in from Naples just a little while ago, or more Naples and Fort Myers, and the water, the storm surge has gone just, it looks like miles inland after it had pushed out so far.
And Chris, I know that you're still with us now. Can you talk to Chris about exactly what he's going to see over the next few hours?
Yeah. So in his area right now, he's looking at that water. It's receded, it's farther out, and it's really going to be the storm over Tampa about 2 a.m. and about 3 and 4 the winds start to shift in off the Gulf of Mexico again, and that's when that storm surge will really kick in, and it'll continue overnight. So they're looking at all that water rushing back in toward Tampa Bay, and all the way up into some of these inlets and tributaries that kind of feed into the Tampa Bay area. And Tampa Bay is known for some pretty big storm surge because it's very shallow in the Gulf, and all of that water kind of gets trapped in a bowl and just gets pushed in toward Tampa.
What questions would you have for Chris right now that we wouldn't know to ask Steve that you would weather-wise?
Well, you know, we're watching the track of this, and it almost looked, you know, the early track was the eye right over Tampa, and unless we're going to have to watch this, it may be just a short-term wobble, but the actual eye may go just a little to the east of Tampa on the current track. So This may just be a short-term wobble like we've seen the last couple of days. But your winds, I'm getting at the airport right now in Tampa, 47, 48 miles an hour. But just to the south, there's 60 and 65. So, Chris, you're going to pick up into those big winds in about an hour to an hour and a half. And then you're in the eye wall of the hurricane where you're getting the really strong winds, up over 100, likely.
Wow. Well, we know
already tonight at Tampa's airport, I think there was a gust of about 60 miles per hour. So the gusts have we felt the gusts pick up here within the last hour. Probably around 8 o'clock, everything started to go from tropical storm force winds to feeling a little bit more powerful than that. And I can tell you, just even standing out here, we're on the top of the parking garage of our sister station, the gusts have definitely become stronger, and we're feeling more of them. And some of the you were talking about some of the temporary beaches that we were seeing, because first timer in Tampa for me, and I thought it was low tide because we live near the ocean on our side of Florida, but people saying they've never seen anything like that before, and I think that speaks to the power of this storm. There is some talk here, and you guys have been talking about it as well, as it has weakened. The concern here, too, is hopefully people don't take their guard down, because, again, this storm, the worst part of it for this area is going to be happening at night. And when you think of the power outages, the trees that could come down, some of the damage that's going to be seen, the big concern is that people would think that it's okay to let their guard down. We do know that some municipalities, as well as the wind has started to pick up. They've sent out the message that we've seen across Florida, so many towns saying that they can't go out and rescue people anymore. So stay inside your house is what they're telling people. And it is interesting, too, because we were here yesterday, and the conditions, there were some blue skies at times of the day, certainly windy, but we were seeing what everyone in our area was going through, and then earlier today, and then now we're starting to feel it come and impact us here in Tampa.
And Chris, well, you're going to notice a lot of debris out on the roads, and we were all here for Hurricane Francis, and that was kind of the first big hurricane that had arrived in decades. And remember, all the debris was just all over the roads, and just a lot of structural damage that you wouldn't typically see, because it was a lot of stuff that didn't really belong. It wasn't built very well. Tampa hasn't had a major hurricane like this in a long time, so there's a lot of debris there that's going to get on the roads and power lines down and that sort of thing, and also tree branches into some of these power lines that'll easily come down too. If you remember back at Francis and Jean, Francis was just this debris field all over the place, up and down the coastline, and then 3 weeks later we had Jean, and there was hardly anything at all, because it had all been cleaned up and we could withstand those types of winds. They're going to see the same thing in Tampa. My counterpart over there